It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday. I wasn't planning on coming home. Hadn't even thought about it, honestly, until I realized I left a flash drive on my nightstand. The flash drive with the HVAC blueprint renderings I needed for a client demo. The irony? I'd lectured the interns about double-checking their gear just that morning. 10 years into being an electrical engineer, and I was still pulling rookie moves. The drive back wasn't long. Our house sits on a quiet street in northeast Portland, tucked behind some overgrown hedges and a mailbox that desperately needs repainting. It's not flashy. Just a little two-bedroom we picked out during a rainy April 6 years ago, when everything felt possible and I still thought falling in love with your best friend guaranteed a lifetime of honesty. Lauren was working from home that day. She said she had a light client load, whatever that meant. She's a freelance brand strategist now, does a lot of Zoom calls and pitch decks for companies I've never heard of. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw that her car was there. Nothing unusual, but the blinds in the bedroom were slightly open, which was weird. Lauren is a natural light minimalist. She always says harsh daylight gives her migraines and messes with her aesthetic. I usually roll my eyes when she says stuff like that, but I'd be lying if I didn't find her quirks charming. Once upon a time, at least. Anyway, I didn't think much of it at first. I got out of the car, grabbed my badge from the cup holder, and was halfway up the steps when something caught my eye. Through that narrow slit in the bedroom blinds, I saw movement. 2 people. I stopped. Lauren. And a man. She was facing him. He was standing too close. He reached out, maybe to touch her arm or brush something off her shirt. I don't know. And she stepped back. Quickly. Way too quickly for it to be nothing. That's what hit me first, the speed. Like she'd been startled. Like she didn't expect anyone to see. And then, as if they both realized at the same time that the blinds weren't fully shut, the man moved out of view and the curtain snapped closed. My mouth went dry. I stayed rooted on the steps, blinking like maybe I just misunderstood what I saw. Maybe I imagined it. But the flash of his face, the clean-cut guy in a white button-up, maybe early 30s, it was burned into my brain. I wasn't imagining anything. I stood there for a full minute, not knocking, not moving, just listening. No laughter, no talking, nothing but my own heartbeat punching inside my ears. Finally, the front door opened. Lauren stood there, one hand on the doorframe, the other holding a mug. Herbal tea. I'd bet anything. She had this almost too bright smile plastered across her face, like the kind of smile you rehearse before a job interview. Her makeup was minimal, her hair twisted up in that messy bun she pulls together in 30 seconds flat. She looked like herself. Almost. "Oh," she said, like she hadn't just been caught doing something. "What are you doing home?" I held up the flash drive. "Forgot this." She looked down at the drive like it was some rare artifact. Then, casual as anything, she stepped aside. "Come in. You just missed Colin. You remember Rebecca's brother?" I paused in the doorway. "Rebecca's brother?" She nodded, still holding the mug, still wearing that expression like nothing was off. "Yeah, he dropped off that book I loaned her forever ago. The Overstory. I mentioned it, didn't I?" She gave me a look like I should know exactly what she was talking about. I didn't realize he was stopping by," I said, stepping into the living room. It smelled like eucalyptus and something else, maybe cologne. Definitely not mine. He texted last minute. I didn't think it was a big deal. She turned and walked toward the kitchen, leaving me standing there in the entryway. I heard the faint sound of running water and the clink of ceramic as she rinsed her mug. She was acting like I hadn't just seen her in a room with another man, reacting like a deer caught in headlights. "Kind of weird timing," I said, louder now, following her voice. She looked up from the sink, eyes wide and innocent. "What do you mean?" I leaned on the counter. "I mean, I saw you through the blinds before I knocked." A beat passed. Her eyes flickered just for a second. Then her expression softened into something concerned, almost offended. "Josh, come on. You're not seriously going there, are you?" "I'm just saying it looked strange." "Strange how?" she asked, voice rising a notch. "Because someone stood a little too close to me while handing over a book?" Because I dared to be in a room with a man while you weren't here? I didn't answer. She let out a short laugh, not a joyful one. The kind people use when they're trying to keep themselves from getting angry. Wow, you really think I'd cheat on you? In our bedroom, in broad daylight, while you could come home any minute? I didn't say that. I hadn't even said the word cheat. But the fact that she jumped there so fast, that said enough. I didn't say that, I muttered, trying to keep my voice level. No, but you thought it. Don't lie. She turned and grabbed her tea again. God, Josh, I can't believe this. She shook her head like I was the one who had crossed the line. Like she was the victim here. And that's what really got me. The way she flipped the script so fast, I barely had time to figure out how I felt. She took the lead in the conversation, took the higher ground, like I'd barged in and thrown around baseless accusations. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask who that guy was really, why she looked panicked, why she didn't tell me anyone was coming over, why she felt the need to lie. But instead, I swallowed it. Maybe it was her tone. Maybe it was the years of trusting her. Or maybe it was fear. Fear that I'd hear something I couldn't unhear. I didn't mean to make it weird, I said eventually. It just caught me off guard. Her face softened, but only slightly. I get that, but can you please, not assume the worst next time? That stung. Because I hadn't assumed the worst. Not until she made it feel like I wasn't even allowed to ask. Sure, I said. Next time. We didn't talk about it again. Not that day, not that week. But something shifted after that. Not between us, that shift had already started months ago probably, but inside me. Because I knew what I saw. And no amount of smiling or gaslighting or perfectly timed explanations could make it unhappen. I don't know what it was about that moment. Maybe the expression she made when I said I'd seen her through the window, or how quickly she turned it into my problem. But after that day, things that hadn't made sense before started lining up like dominoes in my head. I didn't confront her again. I didn't ask more questions. I just started watching. That same night, I went back to the bedroom after she'd fallen asleep. The book the mystery guy had supposedly dropped off, the overstory, wasn't anywhere in sight. Not on the nightstand. Not on the dresser. Not even in the living room where she usually dumped stuff. If she'd loaned it out, why wasn't she excited to have it back? Lauren's the kind of person who gushes about books, especially that one. It's the kind of detail she'd make a moment out of. But instead, it had vanished. It didn't feel like a missing book. It felt like a missing alibi. The next day, I started noticing more. Lauren's schedule had shifted a few months prior. She claimed it was because of client calls in different time zones. But it never added up. Suddenly she was getting up at 6:15 instead of 7:30, doing her makeup and curling her hair just to work from home, and then disappearing for hours to work at the co-op cafe down the street, where apparently no one could reach her. I tried to FaceTime her once while she was on break, and it went to voicemail 3 times. She texted afterwards saying the cafe was too noisy for video. Back then, I believed her. Looking back, that blind faith feels pathetic. There was also the perfume. Lauren used to wear perfume for special occasions, weddings, dates, maybe a fancy dinner. Then, out of nowhere, she started wearing it on weekdays. Not every day, just some days. Always subtle, just enough to notice when she walked by. Not once did she wear it on the weekends. I remember the first time I pointed it out. I was standing by the bathroom door while she fixed her hair. She'd just spritzed something floral behind her ears. Going somewhere fancy? I joked. She gave a light laugh. Just trying to stay motivated, babe. You know how it is. Get dressed, feel productive. Seemed harmless at the time. Normal. But now I can't stop replaying her expression in the mirror. That slight pause before she answered. It gets worse. About 2 months before the window incident, she started going to a Tuesday night yoga class. That's how she framed it. Yoga with Maddie and the girls. I even encouraged it. Told her she needed to do more things for herself. Self-care and all that. She acted like she appreciated the support. One Tuesday, I got off work early. Some emergency systems test finished quicker than expected. I thought I'd surprise her, maybe pick her up, bring smoothies for the group. Something cheesy and thoughtful. She had already left by the time I got home, so I drove toward the yoga studio she mentioned. I never made it there. 2 blocks away, I saw her, standing on the corner in black leggings and a loose sweater. Not with Maddie or anyone else. She was getting into a black Jeep. Passenger side. The guy driving, I didn't get a good look. Just a quick flash as they pulled off. Tinted windows. Out of reach. I remember sitting there in my car, engine running, trying to make it make sense. Maybe her class got canceled. Maybe someone was offering a ride to dinner. Maybe this was something innocent. She hadn't seen me, so I drove past and circled back home. I didn't say anything to her that night. Not even when she got home late and said, "Sorry, Maddie," and I stopped for pho after class. I just nodded and pretended to believe her. And that's the worst part. I did believe her because I wanted to believe her. Now, I realized that night wasn't an outlier. It was part of a larger pattern. A pattern I refused to see because I thought we were solid. But that flash drive moment shattered the illusion. In the days that followed, I became someone I didn't recognize. I never thought I'd be the guy who checked browser history or kept track of someone's whereabouts. But here I was, opening tabs, looking for signs, cross-referencing stories in my head like some amateur detective. I didn't find much. Lauren was careful. Her phone was always with her. Always locked. Notifications turned off. When she showered, the phone went into the bathroom with her. When she cooked dinner, it was face down on the counter, screen black. I once picked it up, pretending I thought it was mine, and she snatched it back with a tight laugh. "Wrong phone, Sherlock." She always had a clever line. The following Sunday, I told her I was going to the hardware store. I drove around the block and parked at the corner. I had no real plan. I just wanted to see if something would happen, if anyone would show up. No one did. But 10 minutes after I left, she opened the front door and stepped outside. She stood on the porch, looked down the street, then back inside. I watched through my rearview mirror as she checked her phone, typed something, waited. Then she went back inside and closed the door behind her. I waited another 20 minutes before I drove off. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was losing it. But that's the thing about suspicion. Once it's in your bloodstream, it doesn't leave quietly. It finds new corners of your brain to poison. Keeps whispering, even when nothing's happening. I found myself rethinking old conversations. There was the weekend we went to the coast, and she left the hotel room mid-morning, saying she wanted to take photos of the Tittapools. She was gone an hour and came back with sand in her hair but no photos. Her excuse? My phone died, and honestly, I just needed a minute alone. Or the dinner with friends where someone mentioned an inside joke Lauren clearly got. And when I asked her about it later, she claimed it was from a work chat I wouldn't understand. None of these things were definitive. They weren't smoking G***s, but put together, they painted something unmistakable. A woman slipping away piece by piece, and a husband too slow to notice. One night, I brought up therapy. I framed it as a way to stay strong together. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Are we not strong?" "I think we could be stronger," I said. She tilted her head. "Or maybe you're projecting." There it was again, that artful pivot. The redirection. Making me feel like the insecure one for trying to fix something. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Her back was to me. We used to fall asleep tangled together. Now we were an arm's length apart, like strangers waiting for a train. I thought about how many things I'd brushed off. How I told myself she was just busy, or tired, or stressed. I thought about how she stopped asking about my day. How she'd zone out when I told stories from work. How her laugh started sounding rehearsed. How I kept loving her through it all because I didn't want to admit something was broken. But the truth was loud now. It was unavoidable. And the window, that moment, that image of her stepping back in panic, it wasn't an isolated mistake. It was confirmation. It was the final puzzle piece clicking into place. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But I didn't need it. I had something more powerful. A gut instinct that had finally, painfully, come alive. And this time, I wasn't going to ignore it. You ever have one of those moments where time slows down, and every detail burns itself into your memory? Not because you want it to, but because you know your life just split in two? That's what happened the day everything finally lined up. It had been a few weeks since the window. Things between Lauren and me had slipped into that strange gray area. Polite, distant, almost too civil. We'd stopped fighting, but not because we were okay. It was the kind of calm that feels like walking through a minefield barefoot. One wrong word, one wrong look, and everything would blow. She said she was traveling for work. A quick business trip to Denver, she called it. 2 days. Some client brand audit. She told me she'd be with coworkers, that she'd share a room with a woman named Cassie from her agency. I nodded and played along. Said all the right things. Be safe. Text when you land. Love you. The words came out automatically, but they didn't mean what they used to. They were relics, echoes of something already dead. She flew out Thursday morning. By Friday evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. A social media story from her friend Amber. Normally, I wouldn't have looked twice, but something about it caught my eye. The geotag said Seattle, not Denver. I opened it. It was a short clip of a cocktail glass being set down on a marble table, the camera panning up to show a rooftop spa. Sunset, city skyline, and there, barely in the background, half out of frame but unmistakable, was Lauren, laughing, hair down, wearing a blue dress I didn't recognize. And next to her, the man from the window, button-up shirt, same haircut, the same easy posture that didn't belong to a stranger anymore. I just stared at the screen, frozen. There's this part of your brain that still tries to protect you, even when the truth is screaming. It whispers, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe she bumped into him there. Maybe it's not Seattle. Maybe you're wrong. But then I saw the reflection in the window behind them. A black Jeep parked on the street below. And I knew. It's hard to describe what betrayal feels like when it becomes undeniable. It's not the sharp pain you'd expect. It's quiet, numb, like your body shuts down everything non-essential to keep you standing. I didn't yell or throw my phone. I didn't even cry. I just sat there, my heart a flatline, my thoughts calm in the worst possible way. That night, I opened our joint bank account. I wasn't looking for evidence. I was looking for confirmation. It didn't take long. A charge from a 5-star hotel in downtown Seattle. 2 nights. A dinner for 2. A flower delivery ordered from the hotel's in-house boutique. Room service. All within the last 24 hours. I clicked through the transactions with mechanical precision. Every receipt was like a nail in a coffin I'd already buried my heart in. Then, on impulse, I opened the cloud storage app we shared, the one where we'd saved vacation photos and tax documents. She didn't know I still had access. It had been months since either of us used it. First, nothing seemed new. Then I noticed a folder I didn't recognize, dated just 2 days ago. It was named Work Trip. My hands were shaking, but I clicked. Photos filled the screen. Lauren at a hotel spa, smiling over a drink, her hair wet from the pool. The man was in most of them, always just close enough to make it clear. His arm around her waist in one, his cheek resting against hers in another. And then the final photo, the one that gutted me. The 2 of them sitting side by side on a balcony, wine glasses between them, her head leaning on his shoulder like it belonged there. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Not really. That was the moment something inside me went quiet, completely terrifyingly quiet. It was like all the noise in my head suddenly evaporated, leaving just stillness. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe an hour. Maybe 3. When I finally looked around, the light outside had changed. Evening had turned to night, and everything in our house, every picture, every mug, every shared thing, suddenly felt foreign. Our wedding photo on the wall caught my eye, the one where she was laughing, leaning into me like the happiest person alive. I stared at it for a long time, trying to remember what that felt like. Not the laughter itself, but the trust behind it. The ease, the safety, felt like watching someone else's life. I didn't rage. I didn't write an angry text. I didn't call her or demand answers. I already had all the answers I needed. What was left to say? Why? No explanation would fix it. How could you? She already had. Who is he? It didn't matter. So instead, I did something simpler. I packed a bag. Just a duffel. A few shirts, a toothbrush, my laptop. The essentials. Then I grabbed the flash drive, the same one that had sent me home that day, and set it on the shelf by the front door. It felt symbolic somehow, like closing a circle. I stood in the living room for a few minutes, looking around. Every inch of that space held years of us. Late-night movies, burned pancakes, quiet Sundays. And yet, in that moment, it all felt like set dressing for a story that had ended long before I realized it. Before I left, I walked into the bedroom. The air still carried her scent. Eucalyptus and whatever perfume she'd started wearing lately. Her laptop sat open on the desk, a blank document glowing on the screen. A part of me wanted to open it, to write something, maybe a final line, a goodbye. But then I thought better of it. She'd know I knew. That was enough. I turned off the light, grabbed my keys, and stepped outside. The night air hit me like a shock, cold, damp, sharp. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing. No tears, no noise, just breathing. Then I locked the door behind me and walked away. No note, no confrontation, no scene, just absence. The drive out of Portland felt surreal. Streetlights blurred in the drizzle. My reflection in the window didn't look like me. More like someone who just watched his old life burn down quietly and decided not to scream. I didn't have a plan. I just drove. Ended up in Tacoma by midnight. Checked into a roadside motel with flickering neon and thin walls. I didn't even unpack. I just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the peeling wallpaper, listening to the hum of the vending machine outside. And that's when it hit me. Not anger, not grief, but this strange mix of freedom and loss, like being cut loose from a ship in the middle of the ocean. Adrift but alive. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember the dream that followed, or maybe it wasn't a dream. Maybe it was memory. We were back in our old apartment, before the house, before the distance. Lauren was painting the living room wall yellow because she said the color felt like hope. I'd laughed, told her it looked like mustard. She threw a paintbrush at me and said, "You're impossible." I remember how she smiled afterward, how sure I was of her, of us, and then I woke up to silence. The kind of silence that tells you the way back doesn't exist anymore. When I left Portland that night, I didn't have a destination, just a need to be gone. I kept driving north until the highway lights thinned out and the rain turned from mist to heavy sheets that blurred everything outside my windshield. I remember pulling into a rest stop at 3 in the morning, sitting there with my hands on the wheel, thinking about how quiet the world can be when you finally stop pretending. That silence was terrifying at first. Then it became addictive. I ended up in Tacoma by sunrise. I didn't know the city well, but it felt anonymous enough. Big enough to disappear in, small enough not to swallow me whole. I found a short-term rental listing on my phone. Studio, utilities included. No pictures, no questions. I called the number. The landlord sounded half asleep but said I could move in that day if I had cash. I did. The apartment was exactly what I needed. Empty, quiet, and impersonal. Concrete floors, a single window overlooking an alley, and a mattress that looked like it had been there since the early 2000s. I didn't care. I dropped my duffel bag, sat on the floor, and stayed there for hours. No phone, no noise, just breathing and trying to remember what it felt like to exist without someone else's gravity pulling me in every direction. The first few days blurred together. I slept at odd hours, ate out of vending machines, and stared at the ceiling until my eyes ached. Every now and then, my mind tried to replay it all, the window, the trip, the photos, but I pushed it away. I wasn't ready to relive it. I just needed to not think. To erase the version of myself that existed before that night. I turned my phone off completely. Emails started piling up, I'm sure work, friends, probably even Lauren. I didn't look. I didn't want anyone to find me or talk me back into a life that wasn't mine anymore. I wasn't running away. I was finally standing still. Around the 5th day, I walked to a corner store and bought a notebook and a pen. I didn't have a plan for it. I just needed to fill the silence with something. I started drawing wiring diagrams, circuit layouts, little sketches of mechanical systems that made sense when people didn't. It became a habit. Each night, I'd fill a page or two before bed, drawing until the noise in my head quieted down. It was the first time in weeks I felt something close to focus. Eventually, I started running. Late nights, mostly, when the streets were empty and I could pretend I was the only person left in the city. At first, it was about burning off nervous energy, but over time it became something else. There was something calming about it. The rhythm of shoes on pavement, the steady breath, the sound of rain hitting asphalt. Running didn't fix anything, but it gave my thoughts somewhere to go. 3 weeks in, I got an email alert on my laptop, one of those automatic account inactivity warnings. It reminded me I still had a job waiting. I knew I couldn't ghost forever. So I emailed my manager, told him I was taking an unpaid leave for personal reasons. He didn't ask for details. Engineers aren't known for emotional oversharing. He just said, "Take care of yourself, Josh." That was enough. A month later, I found a part-time teaching gig at a local technical school. They needed someone to cover basic electrical systems and safety protocols. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and the hours were simple. I didn't talk much. The students didn't either. They just wanted to pass their certification tests, and I wanted to stay out of my head. It was a perfect arrangement. Funny thing, the first time I stood in front of that class, whiteboard marker in hand, something clicked. For years, I'd been designing systems for other people, complicated, expensive projects I had no emotional stake in. Now I was explaining Ohm's law to teenagers who barely looked up from their notebooks. But for some reason, I felt more useful there than I ever did at my old firm. Maybe because it was honest work. Simple. Predictable. No one pretending. No hidden stories behind a screen. Tacoma started to feel like home after that, in its own quiet, unassuming way. I found a small cafe 2 blocks from the school. Black coffee, decent sandwiches, no small talk. I started recognizing faces on my morning runs. The barista knew my order by the second week but never asked my name. It was perfect. Lauren's emails came eventually. I didn't open them, but I saw her name in the preview bar. The first few looked desperate, long subject lines, probably apologies or explanations. Then they got shorter. "Please call me. I need to talk to you." Then one that just said, "I'm sorry." After that, silence. A few months later, a message came from a mutual friend, Mark. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity won. He said Lauren had been worried sick and was asking around if anyone had heard from me. He added, "I'm not taking sides, man, but you should let her know you're alive." I didn't respond. She didn't need to know where I was. She'd made her choices. I was making mine. The truth is, I didn't hate her. Not anymore. Anger burns too fast. What replaced it was something colder. Not forgiveness exactly, but indifference. I didn't care why she did it. I didn't need closure or explanations. Some things just break quietly, and no amount of glue can make them whole again. By the 3rd month, the ache had dulled. My days were simple. I taught classes, graded assignments, went for runs, ate dinner alone, slept. I started to feel a kind of peace I hadn't known in years. One Friday, I stayed late after class to help a student fix a shorted circuit board. He reminded me of myself at 19. Awkward, obsessed with details, convinced the world was waiting for him to prove something. When we finally got the circuit working, he looked up with this huge grin and said, "Thanks, Mr. Keller." I hadn't heard anyone say my name like that. Respectfully, without pity. Since before the marriage ended. Something about it stuck with me. It reminded me I was still someone. Still capable of being useful, of existing beyond what happened. That night, I walked home under the streetlights, and for the first time, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own story. I was just a guy who'd survived something. That realization wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with tears or revelations. It was quiet, like waking up one morning and realizing the pain you've been carrying finally weighs a little less. I started saving money again. Not for anything in particular, just because it felt good to plan for a future. Maybe I'd buy a better apartment someday. Maybe not. But for the first time, it felt like my life again. Not the one I shared with someone who saw through me, but the one I was rebuilding brick by brick. Sometimes I still dreamed about her. Not the betrayal, never that. Just ordinary things. Making pancakes on Sunday mornings, her humming while she worked, the way she'd steal my hoodies and pretend they were hers. I'd wake up with a strange mix of nostalgia and relief. Nostalgia for what we used to be. Relief that it was over. Took me a long time to admit that maybe losing her wasn't the tragedy I thought it was. Maybe it was just the universe pruning something that was already dying. I didn't vanish to escape her anymore. I vanished to find myself. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I did. It had been almost 8 years. 8 years since I'd walked out of our house and never looked back. Since I'd become someone else, quieter, steadier, almost invisible in the way that only people who've truly been broken know how to be. I never expected to hear from Lauren again. I certainly never planned to see her. And yet, there she was. It was a Thursday. Rainy, gray, textbook Pacific Northwest weather. I had stopped by the public library after work, looking for an old electrical engineering journal. I liked flipping through them now and then. Kept me sharp. I was walking through the nonfiction section when I heard a familiar voice. Not loud, not distinct, but unmistakably hers. It was like my body recognized it before my brain did. A soft laugh, half a sentence about project deliverables, and then silence. I turned the corner, and there she was. Lauren. She was standing at the information desk, speaking with a librarian. Her hair was shorter now, chin length, darker than I remembered. There were a few faint lines around her eyes, but she still had that same way of holding herself. One foot slightly behind the other, arms loosely crossed like she was never fully settled. She looked older. Not worse, just real. The polished version I remembered was gone. I froze. She didn't see me at first. I had about 10 seconds to decide what to do. My heart wasn't racing. It was doing something stranger, like holding its breath. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. But I wasn't ready either. She turned just as I started to step back. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, everything went still. She didn't speak. Her mouth opened slightly like she might say something, but nothing came out. Her face paled. The librarian asked her something, but she didn't respond. She just turned, slowly, mechanically, picked up her canvas bag from the counter, and walked out. Didn't check out her books. Didn't say a word. Just left. I stood there for a while, rooted to the spot like someone had hit pause on the world. Eventually, I walked over to the window and watched her disappear down the sidewalk, coat flapping behind her like she was trying to outrun the past. I don't know how long I stood there. That night, I didn't tell anyone. There wasn't anyone to tell, really. I lived alone. Still taught at the tech school. Still ran at night. I had a few people I saw now and then. Coworkers, a neighbor who borrowed tools occasionally, but no one who would have understood what it meant to see her again after all this time. I kept asking myself why she didn't say anything. Why she just walked away. Maybe because she knew she didn't have the right to speak first. Maybe because she saw in my face that I didn't need anything from her anymore. A week later, something strange happened. I came home from work and found a plain envelope in my mailbox. No return address. My name, just Josh. Written in cursive I hadn't seen in years. I knew it was her handwriting the second I saw it. That delicate, slanted way she wrote her J's with a little hook at the top. Inside was a single piece of paper. No letter. Just printed text. A bank account login. Username and password. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. I thought maybe it was a mistake. But then I remembered something from years ago. Right before the divorce, or whatever you'd call it when one person disappears and the other never files paperwork. Lauren had mentioned setting aside some savings, just in case. I never thought much of it. We had a joint account back then, a few CDs, nothing fancy. Curiosity got the better of me. I logged in. It was real. An account under her name with exactly $30,000 in it. It hadn't been touched since the year I left. Same bank we used. Same institution, same mailing address. She had opened it before the trip, probably while things were unraveling, and then left it untouched for almost a decade. Interest had added a little, but it was clear the amount was deliberate. Clean. I sat there staring at the screen, not sure how to feel. There was no explanation, no message, just the login, like she was handing me a final breadcrumb in a trail that ended long ago. Eventually, I found a note folded behind the printout. It wasn't long. I saved this for you. I didn't know if I'd ever send it. I didn't spend it because I couldn't bring myself to use something that didn't belong to me. I always figured, maybe someday I'd find a way to give it back. And maybe now I finally have. That was it. No apology. No excuses. No request for closure or forgiveness. Just 30 grand and a quiet surrender. I didn't hesitate. I logged back into the bank portal, transferred the full amount to my own account, then closed hers. A few clicks, a few confirmations. Done. Transaction complete. No trace. I never replied. There was nothing to say. That money didn't mean anything to me, not in the way she probably hoped. It wasn't about fairness or compensation. It didn't make anything okay. But there was something oddly dignified about the way she left it. Like she finally understood she owed me something, even if it was too late to fix the damage. For a while after that, I kept expecting something more. A follow-up letter, a knock at the door, a message asking if I got it. But nothing came. Lauren vanished as suddenly as she'd appeared. And I was okay with that. I didn't tell anyone about the money. I didn't spend it right away either. I let it sit there for months like a closed chapter, a sealed envelope. Eventually, I used part of it for a down payment on a little house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy but mine. 2 bedrooms. A garage. Enough space to feel rooted. The rest I tucked into a savings account and forgot about. It never felt like hers, even when she gave it back. It felt like a relic from a past I had outgrown. Life didn't change dramatically after that. I kept teaching, kept running. Bought a dog from the shelter. A mutt with one ear that won't stand up and a name he didn't respond to. So I gave him a new one. Murphy. He follows me everywhere now. Sleeps at my feet while I grade assignments. Sits on the porch with me in the mornings. Watches squirrels like it's a full-time job. There's peace in simplicity. Sometimes people ask if I'm married. I say no. If they ask if I ever was, I just nod and say, a long time ago. That's all the story they need. I don't hate Lauren. Not anymore. I don't replay what happened or ask what could have been different. That version of me, the one who clung to every clue, who begged the universe for answers, he's gone. What's left is someone steadier. Not necessarily happier, but more real. And every now and then, when I pass someone who wears the same perfume she used to, or hear a song that played at our wedding, I pause. Not because I miss her, but because I remember who I used to be. And I'm grateful I'm not that person anymore. Months later, I got a call from a law firm. Lauren's company was under investigation, and somehow, digital documents had been signed under my old credentials. If it went public, I could lose my license. I lawyered up. To my surprise, Lauren came forward with proof I wasn't involved. Logs, timestamps, a signed statement. I cleared my name. She lost hers. That chapter closed with no drama. Just silence. I never felt victorious. Just done. No anger, no need for closure. I stayed in Tacoma, bought a house, and adopted a dog. My mornings became quiet. Coffee on the porch, fog in the trees, no lies in the air. The past didn't demand answers anymore. It just existed like a scar that no longer hurt. Peace wasn't justice or apology. It was stillness. And in that stillness, I finally understood. Sometimes walking away is the only real way forward.